Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, powered by FanDuel Sportsbook.
Dwayne Haskins and expectations with the Steelers. Sidney Crosby, is he maybe overlooked a little bit with the league voting? And a weird triple play we got to talk about. We'll do all that and more here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, powered by FanDuel Sportsbook. Hello again, everybody. I'm Josh Taylor. We got a lot to talk about on this Thursday evening, and to help me do that live in the 93.7 The Fan newsroom, Andrew Fillipponi, one half of the PM team. Weekdays 2 to 6, 93.7 The Fan. Pony, you and I talked earlier today about Dwayne Haskins and the comments that he had with the media when he spoke today after practice at day 3 of Steelers minicamp. You tweeted about Haskins earlier today. You sound a lot more optimistic than I think a lot of people probably would at this stage, given the fact it's only minicamp. But you seem to be pretty optimistic about Dwayne Haskins and his long-term possibilities here.
Well, all I said, Josh, was that there is at least one very famous example of a guy, because people have brought up constantly, if Dwayne Haskins is any good, why was Washington so fast or so quick to give up on him and cut him and get nothing back for him? And all I was saying today on both my radio show and on my Twitter account was, that's what happened to Brett Favre. People forget he didn't get drafted by the Packers. He wasn't a career-long cheesehead before he went to the Jets and Vikings. He was with the Falcons for 1 year. He was the 33rd pick in the draft. The coach hated him. They gave up on him. They gave him away to Green Bay, and the rest is history. So, look, Dwayne Haskins, highly unlikely. He has Brett Favre's career. But the point is, there's a good, from a physical perspective, in terms of the physical tools, the God-given tools he was given, there's a good quarterback in there somewhere. He wouldn't have been the 15th pick, and it's not like Washington was the only team in the NFL that thought he was a first-round grade. Go back and look at the draft reports from 2 years ago. Everybody had him as a first-round quarterback. So I think the potential is still there. I think Mike Tomlin, is taking him under his wing and is treating him like way more than an undrafted or futures contract guy. They've got way more invested in him from that type of sweat equity perspective. And I think it's exciting. I mean, the prospect of him becoming a good quarterback here, way more interesting than Mason Rudolph or Josh Dobbs. I think there's a pretty low ceiling on both of those guys. So that's all. I think right now, given Ben Roethlisberger's age, everybody wonders where their next quarterback is going to come from. And I do think the potential is there for Dwayne Haskins.
I just wanted to see a reaction by putting you on the defensive a little bit. Actually, you did make a couple good points. And to your point, it seems like a very low-risk, high-reward move for the Steelers. As much as the quarterback position's been in question, as you've mentioned it, as much as people seem to be pretty much split, or in some cases, some are more bearish than bullish on Mason Rudolph. And then Josh Dobbs kind of gets left as an afterthought when we talk about the long-term possibility. So, yeah, if you have a low-risk opportunity to acquire a guy who had first-round pedigree, like you laid out, and many people thought he did, and maybe, just maybe, if some things start to click, maybe things look a little bit better. Ben Roethlisberger talked about his throwing ability during OTAs, talked about how well he throws the ball. So it's not like there aren't some people out there who think he does have at least the raw ability, right?
Well, yeah, and I think that's not the reason why he, got humbled by Washington and was released.
Right.
He got cut because they ran out of patience with him. And the people that inherited him as the quarterback, Ron Rivera and that staff, they didn't have any kind of, their reputations weren't at stake. They didn't draft Dwayne Haskins. They didn't bet on him. They could make an example out of him. He was deemed expendable by that new staff. They wanted to make and set a new culture there, and the culture was, we don't care that this guy was a first-round pick. If he's not going to work hard enough, if he's not going to care, we don't want him around. And so he was a casualty of that. And that's why I think it's interesting. This is not, when you say no risk, high reward, you're right. But I also don't think this is a situation where it's like, look, you're fourth on the depth chart. You've got to earn everything. We're not going to give you any kind of special opportunity. There's no special dispensation. We're going to treat you like you're at the bottom of the heap and you got to work your way up. No, I think the Steelers want Dwayne Haskins to succeed. because they see if he does, it's a cheap young quarterback that can replace Ben Roethlisberger. And that seems to be the way teams are winning in the NFL, when they don't have to pay quarterbacks at the top of the salary pool. So I think even though the salary or how they acquired him wouldn't suggest this, I think the Steelers are actually going to put some eggs in the Dwayne Haskins basket. They're not going to anoint him and say, you're our franchise savior. You do have to work for it. But I do think they're going to be. Tomlin wouldn't be putting his arm around him and working with him on the side if he didn't see the potential there to be a good quarterback.
That's a good point. And you brought up something smart about having cheap young quarterbacks. How many teams have we seen in the past couple of decades that did it? New England did it with Brady. The Steelers themselves did it with the second-year Ben Roethlisberger. Seattle did it with Russell Wilson. We've seen it happen time and time again where teams have taken advantage of having a young quarterback situation, and they've definitely made it work. So from that perspective, you're right. This is such a situation that only benefits the Steelers as far as a potential price tag, so to speak, in the long run. And I was interested in Mike Tomlin's comments that he had yesterday. He was talking about how he was just trying to get to know Dwayne Haskins, the person, and just trying to find out, pretty much where he is and get a feel for him as an individual. And it does kind of lean to what you're saying, where they're trying to understand what this investment might become and what it might be.
Well, it made it sound like it was more father-son relationship or big brother, little brother than coach-player is how it sounded to me. That's how I took that. I don't think that a coach puts in that type of time with a guy to get to know him, so to speak, if he thinks he's just going to cut him. They share an agent, Tomlin and Haskins. They've got a mutual they've got a relationship where there's a mutual party involved, someone that has a lot of money to potentially make off of both people, Tomlin and Haskins. So there's an incentive there to make this thing work with these two guys. And I think that Tomlin, we know he's a player's coach. Sometimes that gets thrown around with a negative connotation. But he probably thinks that in Haskins, here's a guy who's self-esteem, who's self-confidence. He needs a shot in the arm right now. He probably needs a little bit of nurture. We're not going to coddle him and baby him, but we're also not going to just show him tough love from day one here.
I was also interested in what Haskins had to say, just his particular aspect of it. He talked about how he wants to try to earn that opportunity, but he also said something particular where he said, I just want to make sure the people who took a chance on me look good. So it sounds like he really is invested in at least trying to rebuild his career and maybe even try to rebuild his reputation in the process. But it's really early in the game. I'm sure we'll find out as training camp comes along and as we get closer to the season. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Sidney Crosby. He's a finalist for the Ted Lindsay Award. He was voted the most complete player in a poll by his peers. Is he maybe getting ignored by the league at large? We'll talk about it when we come back. Plus, we're taking your phone calls, 412-575-2600. See you in a few.